Just to get started, we wanted to send a quick poll to get a bit of a feeling for how everyone is in the room. So there should be a poll coming up. If you could select which sheep you most identify with this morning, maybe after the plenary session, that would be great. I'll give you a few moments to respond to this poll. It looks like we're getting some 5s in. It looks like, so some of you are a little bit tired. Looks like we're also getting quite a few 4s in, so hopefully we'll be able to wake you up a little bit. We also have some 1s, so it looks like we need to wake you guys up a little bit. So hopefully thinking about sheep has had some useful impact. And hopefully we'll be able to wake you up a little bit with this presentation. So thank you again for joining us. So just a quick note on the session agenda. So we're going to talk about right now how the topic of green construction is currently addressed in the 2014 to 2020 program. We will hear from 2 actual projects, FCRBE and Digital Deconstruction, on their approach to green construction within the program. And we will hear some words on how this particular subject will be covered in the next programming period. Our objectives today are to present these approaches to help encourage reflection for the future program and to facilitate new context for the future. To begin with, we wanted to give a note on what our definition is of green construction exactly. So what we're talking about really is the fact that the built environment has a very high environmental impact over its life cycle. So we can break it down into 3 main phases. We see that there's the construction phase, where we see the construction phase, which starts with the building conception and material extraction and production. It determines just how resource intensive a building will be. We also know that the construction phase consumes about 50% of primary raw materials in Europe. So this is a very potentially high impact portion of a building's life cycle. We also know that there's the utilization phase. We know that buildings are not static. They're actively consuming resources, emitting greenhouse gases, and generating waste over their life cycle. And we also know that the end of life of a building with demolition waste represents the largest waste stream currently in the European Union. With these problems in mind, the Northwest Europe program provides a framework to act through cooperation. We know that within the current program, we have 2 main priorities that address the question: low carbon and resource efficiency, working to mitigate and to reduce the impact of greenhouse gas emissions from the built environment, as well as to help move towards a more circular economy for building material waste and raw material consumption. This isn't the end of it, though. There's also contributions to other larger frameworks, such as Sustainable Development Goal 12, the resource consumption and production patterns. And many projects have also been contributing to EU-level policies, specifically including the Construction and Waste Demolition Protocol, the EU Action Plan for a Circular Economy, and the EU 2020 Strategy for Sustainable Growth. In addition, we've also seen projects on the ground based on their own implementation experience, contributing to these policy frameworks to help improve them based on their on-the-ground experience. We've seen 13 projects within the Northwest Europe program addressing these 3 main phases of the built life cycle, but they are not limited to their own sections. For example, we see many of the projects that are working at the end of life are trying to facilitate reuse of building materials within the construction phase, and then projects within the construction phase that are trying to take building elements from the end of life cycle to help make more circular products for the construction phase. Within the 2014-2020 program, we have committed a total of 56.2 million euros of ERDF funding. And we have also seen that green construction has been contributing about 15% of the program budget for the total program. This has been spread amongst 145 partners from research institutions, public authorities, municipalities, the private sector, and beyond. Luckily, cooperation has produced new products, new processes, and has laid a foundation for material recovery and reuse in greenhouse gas emission savings in Northwest Europe. We see new products, including new concrete made from circular mixes, new monitoring equipment, new bio-based building materials, low-carbon homes, new processes which have been helpful in facilitating the reuse of building materials, new practices to reuse sediment and circular products, and new practices for net zero energy retrofits. The results that we've seen early on have been hundreds of thousands of tons of materials reused and recovered, new funding leveraged, cooperation with research institutions to bring their research mainstream, and contributions to policy frameworks at the EU, national, regional, and local levels. What we're looking for going forward is not for projects to try and cover all aspects of this loop, but for them to be creating enough synergies amongst themselves to complete this loop. With that, we are going to move on now to these project presentations. We will start with FCRBE. I invite you to send your questions in the chat as they come up. We will address them later on towards the end of the presentation. With that, I am going to pass the floor over to Leah and Michael from FCRBE.
Hi everyone. I'm Leah and I'm working at Rotor. We're based in Brussels. And with my colleague Michael since the end of 2018. Oh, sorry. We are leading the project FCRBE with the objective to foster reclamation and reuse of building materials and make it an accessible option to stakeholders of the construction industry. Our consortium gathers 8 partners from Belgium, France, and the UK. And it's a great mix of small organization, public authority, university, federation, and technical and research institute. Next slide, please. So we're tackling 3 main challenges. First, giving more visibility to the reclamation trade. Second, fostering the systematic reclamation of reusable materials. And third, facilitating the integration of reclaimed materials in large-scale building projects. We are not starting from scratch, and we are building on what is already there, taking advantage of the West Europe specificities. There is more than 1,000 of SMEs in Northwest Europe active in reclaiming and selling reused materials, sometimes for generation, but which have been overlooked by the construction industry, even at a time when circular economy is on mouse. We got the chance to visit and document 900 of them already in France, Netherlands, UK, and Belgium, and Ireland, and to document them on 2 online directories, opalis.eu and SalvoWeb. And of course, there is also ambitious local policy regarding reuse right now in the area. Next slide, please. We can go to the next slide. Sorry. So at the very end, our objective is to increase by 150% the amount of materials being circulated for reuse in Northwestern Europe by 2032. I'll leave the floor to my, next slide. So, what? Maybe a slide before this one, if it's possible. So maybe just for the project results. So we are currently developing 2 comprehensive guidebooks, one to conduct reclamation audit, and the second one on the other one, how to specify reclaimed building materials in large-scale projects. We are also conducting 36 pilot operations in live projects to test the method and to get feedback from the field, to support stakeholders and to foster reuse, and obviously to reclaim and reuse materials. We are aiming at circulating 360 tons of materials by the end of the project. We're also developing a truly reclaimed label with the trade. The objective is to enable consumers to make the difference between authentic reclaimed product and new product imitating reclaimed one. And also we are working on 40 material sheets, providing valuable references to architects and builders without prior experience with reclaimed product. These sheets highlight products that are steady on the reuse market and with a good level of services. I'll give the floor to Michael.
Hi, everybody. In terms of pushing the result further, we are very happy to have successfully applied to the call for capitalization, and it will allow us to develop our efforts on 2 new fronts. First, reaching new target groups, and namely introducing the building trades, so the organization and the companies that are downstream the development of a project in adopting reuse practice in their daily activities. And second, to develop a coherent method to set, measure, and report on reuse objectives as part of a public tender, for instance, or as part of a project development. As of today, we estimate that only 1% of building materials are effectively reused after their first use. So the challenges ahead to increase that amount are still huge, to say the least. Hopefully, our project can contribute to tackle some of the challenges hindering these practices today, but there's certainly still a lot of work to do, and notably in terms of adopting public policies that are more reuse friendly. Next. The added value of the partnership is probably based on the fact that the FCRBE project is really built on foundations led previously at local levels by the different project partners. And so in this sense, the project is an opportunity to bundle these local efforts in a more coherent and more general, ambitious way. The cohesion and the collaboration within the partnership is very strong so far and very fruitful. So we are very happy to continue. We are still learning a lot from each other. And so as long as our partners are still willing to follow us in the call for capitalization, we are delighted to continue the collaboration. Next. Well, this last slide is an image taken from one of our ongoing pilot operation, the one which Leah talked about. In this case, it's a social housing company in Lille, which we supported in getting in touch with local salvage and reclamation dealers. And what we see on the picture is really a local trader in reclaimed materials, in this case, doors, who transferred the knowledge and the know-hows on how to properly dismantle the doors, jambs, and the door castings, which is not that easy to do, to the technical crews in charge of the usual demolition. And on one hand, you could say that this is only a really small drop in the ocean, but if you multiply this very image by the amount of doors within the building, and then by the amount of buildings within the portfolio of that organization, and then by the amount of pilot operations we are following and the rollout that the project may have, at the end, you end up with quite a lot of valuable resources being reclaimed and saved, and as much greenhouse gases emissions that are avoided. So that's really the aim of the project. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much, Leah and Michael, for your presentation on FCRBE. Just a quick reminder, we will take questions towards the end, so please keep sending them in as they come, as you have them, and we will address them at the end. I am now going to give the floor to Harold Van Horen, who will present the Digital Deconstruction Project. Harold?
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Harold Van Horen. I'm working for the province of Limburg, a regional government. We are one of the 14 partners within the project Digital Deconstruction. We are currently within the priority 1 stage, an innovation hub, and we have a slightly different approach to deconstructing. We are developing a digital system which allows companies to actually validate the possibility to deconstruct a building and what comes with it. So next slide, please. So what are the challenges? Well, as already spoken, construction demolition waste accounts for about 1/3 of the total waste produced in the EU, and only 50% of that will be recycled. So there's a lot of waste to be tackled, and most of them is downcycled, which for backfilling, etc. And one of the items we saw is that a poor digitalization of the construction sector is one of those issues that could be optimized in order to make sure that we can challenge the better deconstructing of the buildings. So next. Yeah, so and that's where we tackle this within the Northwest Europe region, in order to have more collaboration, larger scale, larger amount of diversity and knowledge areas that we can take into account and use within the project. And we saw that there were some challenges, like, for example, distance, different standardizations within the construction area, within IT, etc. And we are trying to make sure that we match the knowledge of certain areas like architects, IT, and construction and science together in order to develop this system. So that's quite a challenge to do, and it's quite interesting to see this. Next slide, please. The objective. Digital deconstruction promotes the development of the technology and market readiness of innovative integrated digital system. So basically we are developing a support system that we can make decisions on what building we can deconstruct and how we're going to deconstruct it so that we have high quality recycling of the materials within the region. And also the next thing is we'd like to have innovation hubs and mobilizing the key innovation stakeholders and small and medium enterprises in the construction demolition sector, so that we can create a market for this recovery, which can also be connected to the previous speakers, so that we can actually make sure that we have a circular economy based on all those two projects together. And as we have we produced so far, up to now we have developed several individual modules, which it's like 3D scanning. We have got a blockchain module. We've got material passports, material database, and we've got reversible BIM, which all will be integrated in one platform. We are currently developing the IT architecture, and we have set up some regional and transnational innovation hubs. And we started with 4 pilots, as you can see on the right. We've got the left corner, we've got the building in Hele. The building next is a train station in France. And we have got a train station in Luxembourg, and we have the heritage location in Belgium that has already been scanned and processed. We have got a small video I would like to show you. I think Peter can start at, which you can see how, for example, the pictures for the 3D scanning are made. So you can see this person walking around taking pictures, which all will be compiled together, and point cloud will be made to see, to analyze all the data. So this is just a short impression about this. What we would like to achieve is an integrated digital deconstruction system. Can you go? Yes, thank you. At TRL level 7. TRL level 7 means that it is technology readiness level 7. It's a proof of concept of a pilot, as you say, in an operational environment. Next to it, we would like to develop a transnational network of regional innovation hubs, all within 5 pilots. And we will an interactive DDC navigator, where you can actually see how it in a simulation works, the digital deconstruction. And what we have seen is that the current worldwide economic situation has been challenging within this project, because we need to travel amongst different countries, which is quite difficult at this point, but hopefully will be better in the upcoming half year. Next slide, please. Yeah, what would we like to develop? TRL 9, which is a completely market-ready system, and will be integrated and adopted within the construction and deconstruction sector in the upcoming years. And of course, we would like to have 25% of the recovery of building materials for high quality recycling within that. Next. And challenges that remain for the future is, of course, the transformation of the building and demolition industry, because everybody needs to have a different approach to deconstructing and constructing in order to create a complete circular industry. And added value, what we have seen in the partnership is that the collaboration among different countries, different areas of construction, the scale, knowledge areas, of course, the cultural, economical differences that have been an added value to see and to develop a complete system for Europe. And also at this level, it indicates that it is a very hot topic at this point, and that we are very happy to have this at this level. And of course, our partnership is a solid mix of different expertise, who have all great intrinsic motivation to actively contribute to the projects. And of course, these are great ingredients to continue working after this project. And we have got a lot of work ahead of us to create a digital integrated system. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much for this, for listening. As you can see in this picture, it's sort of a representation of deconstructing instead of demolition, so that we can use all the different items within deconstructing. So thank you very much. That was my presentation.
Thank you very much, Harold, for your presentation. Once again, we're receiving some questions, so we will address these at the end. So thank you very much for that. And without further ado, I will pass the floor to Kirsten, who will be presenting the future program. Kirsten.
Thank you very much, Peter. And yeah, after you have heard what the projects have already achieved, I would like to give a short outlook on the future program. And probably you're interested how, which future priorities will be important in the field of green construction. But please be aware that, as you heard, discussions are still ongoing and slight changes might evolve until the program is finally approved. So yeah, while a lot of progress has been made, several challenges remain, what we will see on the next slide, according to the territorial analysis. And they are asking for further reduction of the impact of built environment in Northwest Europe. They refer, for instance, to the high demand of primary raw material or to the low energy performance in many buildings. So thus, in order to make construction in Northwest Europe greener, it will be important, for example, to close the loop of material streams and to enhance energy efficiency. In order to make it more competitive, the prices should be reduced because at the moment, raw material is cheaper than recycled material. And in order to make it more competitive, green construction has to be more widely available. Therefore, replicable solutions and the implementation of integrated strategies should be fostered. So to sum it up, there have been a lot of new technologies that were developed in the past, and this is why in the future their uptake and diffusion will be of importance. So what you've already seen in the plenary is our thematic orientation for the future program. Here I put the 5 priorities for the event today. The first 3 are important when we are talking about a greener Northwest Europe. And when it comes to green construction, 2 priorities will be very relevant. The first one will be priority 3 because it focuses on the transition to a circular and resource efficient economy. And we have seen that numerous approaches will contribute to green construction in this regard. And as well, priority 2 will be interesting because here we will tackle energy efficiency, reduction of greenhouse gases, and renewable energies. So I would like to start with the circular economy. And in this priority contributes to the new Circular Economy Action Plan. And this is one of the main building blocks of the European Green Deal. But when promoting a more efficient transition, you have to keep in mind that the area of Northwest Europe is already rather advanced, yet know-how and benefits are unevenly distributed across sectors, geographies, and societal groups. And due to existing cross-border flows, circular value chains have to be considered not only at local, but as well at transnational level. This is why the impact of future NWE projects should focus on capacity building with strategies and uptake of circular approaches. Just to name a few examples of activities, they relate, for instance, to the implementation and demonstration of place-based strategies and circularity concepts, for example, on eco-design or waste prevention. In priority 2, the focus lies on energy transition, and energy performance is still low in many program areas. So to meet the binding EU targets, retrofitting of buildings is still an important point on our agenda. In this context, also energy poverty is a joint challenge to almost all urban areas in Northwest Europe. This is why future NWE projects should contribute to knowledge and capacity building in order to realize a smart and just energy transition. Therefore, activities can encompass, for example, the implementation of strategies and the demonstration of solutions in order to enhance energy efficiency and the uptake of renewable energies, for example, in the dwelling sector. What I summarized are just general examples that will have to be filled with creative ideas. So you are the experts. Do what makes Interreg projects in Northwest Europe successful and address the challenges together, taking all relevant stakeholders on board. What exactly can transnational cooperation do? It is an important way to tackle the described challenges in the field of green construction. This has been confirmed as well by the outcome of the public consultation that has also been already mentioned in the plenary. The assessment of more than 400 responses basically shows that we are well on track with the plans of the future program. For example, it is pointed out that transnational cooperation is crucial to develop successful circular solutions on the appropriate territorial scale and link them where possible, or to achieve change via reaching the required critical mass. Many more reasons for transnational cooperation have been stated, and we are curious about your ideas and maybe first project ideas. The roundtables later will be a good possibility to talk about it. But moreover, I would like to invite you to get into contact with your national contact points after the event in order to talk about your project ideas and how they might fit into the future NWE program. We will be glad to support you. But now I would like to open the floor for questions on what has been presented so far. Afterwards, we will get ready for the roundtables. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirsten, for your presentation on the new program. So as promised, we will now be getting to your questions that have been coming in. We've received some for digital deconstruction and for FCRBE, and I'm guessing that we will probably be receiving some as well. Just a quick note, I learned that there was part of the presentation that was not able to be heard. My apologies. So just so you know, there will be the video recording available and slides will be sent out. Also a note, the missing 5 minutes will be available later on. With that, we will go to your questions. We will start with FCRBE. So there were two questions for FCRBE. There was a question about the methods that were developed. Were they methods for harvesting material? And were there materials that were gathered and demolished by humans? There was a second question as well relating to carbon emissions and reductions considering transport. There was a question, so this question was saying that transport and distance is the biggest obstacle for reuse, and the person was wondering if you could please elaborate on this issue. So for you, Mikael and Leah, if you could address those two questions, thanks.
Yeah, sure, thanks a lot, interesting questions. Regarding the method, the reclamation audit method is really a guidebook on how to identify the reuse potential of materials being present in buildings slated for demolition. So it's really a complex cocktail of considerations regarding the economic value of the material, the cost of dismantling, regarding the classical demolition, the demand, is there a demand for that material? So it's quite a complex area, and it's really a guidebook to train stakeholders in adopting this regard when they're assessing the building. I hope it answered the first question. Regarding the second question about the environmental impact of transport, I think to be fair, you should compare that with the transport of new building materials, which often come from very far away from abroad. And in this sense, the reclamation industry is still pretty much local. We are doing a statistical survey for the moment in the trade, and it really depends a bit on the type of materials, but many companies are very local, and the material do not move further than like 50, 60 kilometers around the original site. So it's much more reduced than the distances covered by new materials, which travel for thousands of kilometers. So in this sense, it's still a very interesting option, especially if you compare also the impact due to the production stage of a material, which are usually where the impacts are the most important, and where you can somehow avoid that by reusing an existing material. No, it's true that if you compare, I don't know, local and very sustainably managed timber with reclaimed timber coming from, I don't know, from India, let's say, there may be a question there, and somehow you should do an LCA to objectify which is the best solution. But broadly speaking, as a rule of thumb, you can really consider that reusing material will always be a more interesting solution than new materials regarding the environmental impacts.
maybe one last thing regarding the reclamation audit method. Yes, it's really human skills based. So it's how to enhance the skills of professionals, which is a bit. I think that was one of the questions. So yeah, we truly think that reuse is really linked to human skills first.
Great, thank you very much, Leah and Mikaed, for taking those questions. If that is all that you wanted to say about those issues, we will now pass to the questions that were sent for Harold for digital deconstruction. So Harold, the very first question that was sent was asking, what is the system like? Does it involve digital twins of existing buildings? Are these BEAM models, or is the data accessible from BEAM systems of new buildings? And could you please provide more details on them?
The system contains of several individual modules, which all comprise we are developing, let's put it this way, we're developing an integrated system, which connects several existing and new developed modules, which will be integrated together. For this, we are using not as much as digital twins, but we actually try to develop this and test it on actual pilot sites. So we're actually developing those modules and doing this on these pilot sites. As for the BREEAM, that is also one of the issues that we will tackle within the project. Hopefully, I have answered the questions properly.
Okay. Thank you. There were some other questions for you as well. Another one was asking, were there a perceived sense of something being monitored by the general public and that you had to explain this potentially at the moments when you were taking the 3D recordings?
Yes, of course it was prepared. The company the partner who's doing this 3D scanning has contacted the owner of the building, which is NCSF, the French railway station. And together they've prepared this, and of course they instructed everybody within these activities.
Okay, great, thank you. There was one last question for you, Harold. Someone asked, I wonder for what purposes are you planning to use blockchain technology, BEAM, and material passports? How will their use change for new building projects and existing building stock?
Well, the idea is that once a product has been produced, it will be identified and has an added value, economic value, as of a building's value, material value. And both of them have a lifespan. So when you put it into a building, the ownership of that material will go to the owner of the building. And when you deconstruct the building, you can also identify this same object and probably sell it or reuse it so that you can identify exactly where the material has been and also create a life cycle for that so that you can actually make it circular. So the ownership of that material will pass to the next owner. And if you rebuild this on the same spot for the same owner, you actually know what stuff is in it. And you also know the quality of the material next to the economic value, because basically the material passport says something about the quality of the material and the blockchain says something about the economic value, and both will be combined within this process.
Great, thank you very much, Harold. There were two questions that also came up for the future program. So the first one was how partner search can happen in the future program for stakeholders that have project ideas and that would like to build a partnership. So Kirsten, I'm wondering if you might have an answer for that.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'm happy to hear that you are already thinking about projects, because this is what I interpret from this question. And of course, there will be numerous support measurements for you when you are looking for partners. And I think the best way is to address your national contact points, get in touch with them, describe your ideas and whom you are looking for, and then they will get in touch with us, the network of contact points, and we will try to provide the partners that might fit best. And in the course of our program development, we will of course discuss which further options we will have. There will be project search possibilities on the website and so on. This has to be discussed, but for the moment, the national contact points will be the first choice.
Great. Yes. So as Kirsten said, these workshops, reaching out to your contact points, and especially this new online partner search tool that will be developed for the new website. So thank you, Kirsten. The other question for you was about the application process and whether or not this will be the same in the new program.
This is an interesting question as well, and we are working hard on this question. Right now, we are still in the phase of assessing, which parts of the application process went well and should be continued, and where we will see future needs for adaptation. And this is also linked to the new themes we want to address. So, and the new maybe kinds of projects we will have in mind. So this is a whole package that is being discussed now, and I'm afraid, but at the moment I can't give a very final answer, but just invite you to have a look at our website. At the time we will have decided about that, it will be presented there. And again, national contact points can give you the updates on these questions if you like to.
Thank you, Kirsten. Yes, so just to say one last word, be sure to keep checking the Interreg Northwest Europe website, which will be updated regularly as updates do come up for the evolution of the new program.